Normally, we feel ourselves to be a unitary being, a person who experiences the world, who experiences the people and events and situations and objects in the world, to whom experience happens. But try to imagine what happens when this unitary being, this self that we feel inside us, is extracted from all of its relations. So what happens when I am dissociated from all the people that I know and from all the objects that I use and I come into contact with? What happens when I am dissociated from the ground on which I stand, or from the air that I breathe? Perhaps, like peeling away the layers of the onion, there is nothing beneath all of these relations. There is no self that can be extracted or abstracted away from its relations, from its interactions, because the self, my being, the unitary being that I feel myself to be, emerges in its interactions. And so in an extended sensory deprivation, let's say, perhaps the self would simply disappear or descend into an emptiness, or at least a disjointed incoherence. There is no coherent self anymore, and there is no object and other people, and there are no situations against which I can cohere into a unitary being. So when I descend into this emptiness, perhaps there is still something there. Perhaps this emptiness is still pregnant with propensities and dispositions and the tendencies and biases that characterize my way of relating and interacting. So when I re-emerge from this hypothesized state of sensory deprivation, I will re-engage the world in an idiosyncratic way. I will interact with things in the world in a specific way, in a specifically configured way, which has a pattern. So there is a pattern in my experience. There is a consistent and coherent way. There is a style in my interactions. There is a unique style that anchors my experience. And so, if I am the expression of the material and also social conditions that in which I am embedded within, I am also expressing these conditions, these material and social conditions, in a unique and individual way. And this style of my being is manifest in the things that I do. It is manifest in my behaviors and manifest in my actions and movements and gestures and preferences. But it is not reducible to these features of my behavior. The style of my being is always in excess of what I do and how I do it. It is the principle that animates my behaviors, and my gestures and preferences and actions only hint at my deeper style that animates my behaviors. And perhaps the more I interact and the more I engage in diverse activities and creative activities, and the more I participate in varied experiences, the more my style of being will get manifest. And of course, a problem could be that we are creatures of habit, and we easily settle into routines that summon only a limited aspect of our being into manifestation. And this is part of the reason why others will categorize us as so and so, and also why we will categorize others as such and such, because we think we know others when in fact we only know a certain limited range or an aspect of their being that emerges in the routines and situations we share with those people. We tend to reduce other people to those aspects of their being that are manifest in our shared situations and that are manifest in our shared interests as well. And it is no wonder then that we find certain people boring when we think that we know them through and through, or to a significant degree, when we think that they are predictable in a way. As in stale romantic relationships, when the partners can get really irritated by the little habits of each other because they have a sense of familiarity with each other that promises no novel experience, no uncharted territory, and that's why the relationship feels to be stale. But that's another topic. I don't want to talk about that. Let's remain and let's focus on the main point of this discussion, which is this, that perhaps only those people are uninteresting for us who we know and to whom we relate only superficially. And perhaps only those people find themselves boring who know themselves only superficially. In fact, the more we know somebody, the more interesting that person becomes for us. And the more we know ourselves, the more interesting we become to ourselves, perhaps. I think it's true. The more we know something, the more interesting and more arresting and gripping that thing becomes. It can be an idea, an object, a theory, not just an individual. And this is worth reminding ourselves to, and others as well, who, blending into their routines, become oblivious of the mystery of who they are, by tracing the style of beings, of other individuals, of objects and things. We are on a way of recovering their inherent grace in a way. And this is